Welcome back, ghouls and goblins. I hope you're having a magical day. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to support the channel. My name is Hello Good Game, and I am pleased to be your host within this Magic the Gathering card spoiler video. What? We're going to be talking about Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Basically, a twofold set. More on this in today's video. Coming into Magic the Gathering, playable within my favorite play medium, Arena. It took you way too long to think of that. Easy, settle down. Don't worry, if you thought that was bad, wait for the rest of this video. We are discussing brand new cards, right? So, my pronunciation of some of these Magic card names is horrific. You should get some good laughs here, right? And of course, we're going to be discovering not only some of the new cards, but also what they do, of course, their strengths, their weaknesses, and going through the new mechanics of the set and, everything else you're going to need to know as well. Okay, so like I said, thank you again. I really appreciate the support, the likes, the comments. Of course, subscribe to the channel for new content every single day. And of course, the community Discord remains open if any of you would like to jump in, make a new friend. Of course, we're always available to chat, okay? So let's get right into it and take a look at the new set, starting with the mechanics.
It's a new lap record!
Here we are. Themes and mechanics. Now, this information is available within the MTG Fandom Wiki. I recommend this for all of your information, as it's correct. So Outlaws of Thunder Junction is going to introduce the concept of crimes. Any spell or an ability that targets an opponent or their stuff, spells, permanents, hand, or library, as well as graveyard, is going to be committing a crime. Since it's a plane of Outlaws, committing crimes is going to be incentivized, right? So it's a good thing to be doing. You're not going to be punished. Welcome to America. Stop it. You get to be the villain. We're going to have the plot mechanic introduced within the set. This is similar to Foretell or Suspend, where you're going to be playing the card with an alternative cost on the front end. And then later, as it will go to Exile, you can cast it at sorcery speed, which is kind of a bummer, but whatever, without paying its mana, right? Which is pretty good. So you're almost front-loading and storing your value or mana availability, if that makes sense. So, like, say that you wanted to do something, explosive on one turn that you couldn't typically do on, say, 5 mana, but you were able to plot something earlier in the game on like 3 or 4 mana, and now you can basically add that to your next turn for free, which is pretty good. You're obviously going to be restricted to the specific cards that include the mechanic, but it's definitely going to be something new for us to build around, which is super exciting. The downside here, though, that's obviously what we can do to take advantage of the new mechanic, but we're looking to mitigate doing it too much, as it's going to be open information, right? Your opponents will see the plotted cards, right? So this is going to give them the opportunity to hold up mana for a counter spell, hold up mana for a remove, whatever it happens to be, to deal with your plotted spell effectively, right? So, it's going to add an additional layer. And, of course, you can have, because you've plotted, now potentially mana to have a counter spell to interact with their, there's multiple layers that this adds. And that's actually pretty cool as far as casting multiple spells early on in game goes, right? And even, mid-game. Moving on, we're going to be, obviously talking about these mechanics more as we discuss the cards and begin theory crafting around them, right? Saddle will be a new keyword ability associated with the new mount creature type, similar to Crew. It is activated by tapping any number of creatures you control with power equal to or greater than the saddle value Creatures with saddle, unlike vehicles, can still attack and block like normal because they're creatures, right? They're going to be in the battlefield, not to the side. Well, I mean, I know it's still in the battlefield, but your vehicles go alongside your artifacts in your artifact zone, not in your creature zone. These saddle ability creatures or permanents will very much be in play. So they can still attack and block like normal, and if you saddle them, they're going to have, triggers, because, think of it like Enlist, right? Enlist was a mechanic where you'd attack, and then you could tap another creature that didn't have summoning sickness and grab its power. And also scry, right? This is kind of like that, but the saddle is going to be unique to the card, right? Maybe one card does do that, whereas the Enlist was that same, gain its power scry 2, right? Which is pretty cool. Actually, I think it was only gain its power, and the scry 2 was just subject to the Benalia or whatever it was. Anyways, moving on. Finally, Spree is a keyword found on instants and sorceries that will grant them modality in a similar way to Escalate. Spells with Spree have several effects, each with an additional cost. However, the costs can be different from each other, and a spell with Spree can have a very different impact early game as to what it would be late game, selecting multiple modes or even just more expensive modes, right? So that's really cool, right? We're going to have new creature types here for us as well. The Outlaws, I believe, are like rogue, mercenary. We'll get to that in a second. We'll pull up a card that will tell us what the Outlaws are. Here they are. Assassin, mercenary, pirate, rogue, and warlock will count as outlaw creature types. So that's going to be important for specific cards, but it will remind you of this on the cards as well, right? Aside from that, things to know: the pre-release April 12th to the 18th, available on Arena on the 16th, which is super exciting. Some more dates there that I don't know if you care about or not. And then the set symbols. So this was supposed to be a double set like the Aftermath was, where it just like had a couple cards in the pack, but people didn't like that. So they're like, well, we'll just put it into that other set, and there's 2 set symbols, right? So the Vault will be those cards, right? They are playable in Standard, right? They're going to be Standard legal. You can call them the big score cards if you want, or Vault cards, I suppose. But Vault is already a thing, and so probably call them big score cards. And then we do have the breaking news cards as well, legal in formats that they're already legal in, as well as legal in limited if you happen to pull it, which would be pretty cool. Okay, so that's going to be some information for you, as well as there's going to be 3 set symbols here for us to look at, and we may as well jump over. And we see the 3rd set symbol, which is the core set symbol here, that little downwards arrow, or I'm not sure how you'd like to describe that, but they're there. Okay, so new lands coming in tapped, dealing 1 damage to our opponent, which is great. Not bad for multicolor burn decks. They are deserts as well, which is, something to keep in mind. Some decks care about that, which is great. And, multi-lands are pretty cool, and they are relevant. Dealing damage to your opponent's not terrible, and it's a good price to pay for a tapped land. Honestly, not bad. And play it with something like Splunking. Now your lands aren't coming in tapped. Now you just have straight up damage lands. Very cool. You get all your bases covered within all the colors. Very nice. We will also finish our fast lands in tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands, right? So that's very good for Jeskai. Very, very good. Gonna help us get rid of having to pay life for our consistency of mana base. So that's, gonna be really nice for deck building. And then, I guess into our first real card here, the Insatiable Avarice for 1 mana. This is a module card, which we've talked about here, or a spree card, I guess we could call it. At sorcery, for 1 mana, +2. Search your library for a card, then shuffle, put that card on top. For 2, but specific swamp or black mana, target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life. So that's a unique card. I almost wish there was a third mode that was a little bit cheaper, right? But not bad. Honestly, not bad. Pretty good. We'll see, though, right? I think a lot of these cards are maybe more viable, and not maybe all of them, but maybe the majority of them are most viable within Commander, where the games do go on a little bit longer, right? And you do have a chance to, actually spree this card for 5 mana. I don't necessarily know how often that's going to happen in Standard, but, we'll see. We're just looking at new cards. Moving on to our second card, Fortune Loyal Steed for 3 mana. This is a 2/4 legendary creature, beast mount, and when it enters the battlefield, scry 2. It's quite nice. And whenever it attacks, while saddled, at the end of combat, exile it, and up to 1 other creature that saddled it this turn, and then return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Saddle is only 1, which is quite nice. This is very good. And obviously, as they re-enter, it's going to be untapped again, which is pretty cool, right? So, getting some ETB value there, getting, the scry from itself via that ETB, and then, being able to defend again as a 4 toughness creature is relevant, Is it better than the other 3 drops we have access to? Well, probably not so much. Where were you? Someone's been outside. Meow. Like, oh, I just found some leaves. And, yeah, so the loyal kitty. You're a beast, right, Maya? She's like, yeah, but I'm not a mount. Don't you dare put a saddle on me. Don't you dare saddle me. Vraska joins up for 2. And this is going to be a legendary enchantment. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a death touch counter on each creature you control. That's quite interesting. And whenever a legendary creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's quite interesting as well. So, creatures with trample would definitely benefit from this, right? Trample and death touch is supreme. And obviously, if those creatures could have legendary status as well, that'd be pretty cool. Kodama, looking at you. It's modified creatures you control have trample. This is a death touch counter. That's a modification. Everybody gets trample. Let's go. And it happens to be legendary, so just off the top of my head, that's pretty cool, right? It's probably gonna be nice other places as well. Jace, Reawakened for 2 mana. LOL. This is a 3 mana planeswalker. Oh my gosh. 2 mana planeswalker, 3 loyalty. However, you can't cast a spell during your first, second, third turns of the game. That doesn't affect how cheap it is, making it very easy to play on turn 4, and then having 2 mana for a counterspell. Absolutely. Interaction of some sort for certain. +1, draw a card, discard a card. That's definitely not bad. That's pretty good. You may exile a non-land card with mana value 3 or less from your hand. If you do, it becomes plotted. Honestly, that's really good as well. That's like actually crazy good. I don't want to. Dang, bro. That's like +3 mana. Is it not? Wow. -6 until the end of turn. Whenever you cast a spell, copy it, and you may choose new targets for the copy. That's phenomenal. Rakdos, the Muscle. 5 mana, 6/5 legendary creature, demon mercenary, with flying and trample. And whenever a sacrificed creature, whenever you sacrifice another creature, exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library until the end of the next end step. You may play those cards, and you may you may play those cards, and mana of any type can be spent to cast those spells. Sacrifice another creature. This is nice. You can do this at instant speed. Rakdos the Muscle gains indestructible until the end of turn. You also tap it at and only once each turn. Oh, so you can't do it on the stack like you typically would with a lot of the gain indestructible at instant speed effects. So that's quite nice for your opponent, as they might actually get a chance to remove it, but they're going to need 2 removal spells. And, unless there's no creatures here, then they can't activate it, of course. So that's a pretty expensive card. Flying Trample, sacrifice a creature, which you can do yourself. Exile cards equal to its mana value from the top of target player's library, so that could be theirs. And then you may play those cards. It's not bad. That's probably much better, again, in like a commander game. It's expensive. 5 mana. 6/5 with trample is not bad. Doesn't have haste. You could immediately activate it, but, you're out of mana probably. So unless you're generating mana as well via a sacrifice, something like this, or you're bringing it into play without actually having to pay for it, it just seems like a little much. Speaking of a little much, in a different sense, Vraska the Silencer, probably top 10 card here. 3 mana, and keep in mind, not all of the cards have been spoiled, but dang, brah. A 3/3 with Death Touch. It is also legendary. Keep in mind of that Vraska joins up enchantment, which we've recently discussed. Whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls dies, you may pay 1. If you do, return that card to the battlefield tapped under your control. It's a treasure artifact. With sacrifice, this artifact add 1 mana of any color, and it loses all other card types. That is a thing. Wow. Give me your stuff. Very, very cool. I do not mind it. It also, when their things die, will simultaneously link in with the committing a crime, right? Because you'll be targeting that thing that you kill, most likely, which is great. And, just these are how this is how decks are made, right? So just kind of discovering these new cards, assessing them, looking at their strengths and weaknesses, and really how they compare against one another value-wise. For example, I'm going to be comparing all of these legendary mythics against each other, right? And, obviously the Golgari Vraska blows the Rakdos Muscle out of the water as far as playability in Standard, as far as I'm concerned, goes. Moving on, we've got Kellen the Kid for 3. This is a banned creature for 3/3 with flying and lifelink. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, exile your graveyard. If a permanent spell with equal or lesser, you may cast a permanent spell with equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. And if you do, you may put a land card from your hand into the battlefield tapped. This is a 3/3 with flying and lifelink, 4/3. That's good. And now you're free casting from your hand. That's crazy. Joda, it's a legendary deck. Play a legendary creature. Exile cards from your library until you get a creature, or I think it might be legendary creature or legendary spell with lesser mana value. That enters play, and that's going to now allow you to throw something from your hand, which triggers Joda again, and around we go. So that's interesting. Very good. I like it. And he flashed the veteran for 6 mana as a 4/5 with flash. I like it. It's a Naya colors, so it's kind of interesting. But when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Woo! So it's basically a 3 mana creature. Let's think of it that way, right? And whenever any flash becomes tapped, exile the top 2 cards of your library, and you may play those cards this turn. Oh, that's good. Oh, that is good. So I know it doesn't cost 3. It obviously costs 6. You need that mana. But as far as a value comparison goes, you're bringing something back. That's going to be phenomenal. And, you know, Naya's never really had a problem with accumulating resource to get there. Anyways, not to mention the fact that it has flash. I really do like this as well. Specifically, if the permanent card that you're getting from the graveyard has an ETB to create maybe another blocker, or straight up is acting as removal. So now this enters play, is a fantastic flash blocker because it's a 4/5, right? What isn't that getting? And you're also maybe potentially getting another removal with the ETB of the 3 mana value permanent, which is great. And then it's a draw engine. I like it. That's actually phenomenal. The Gitrog, Ravenous Ride. Ooh. 5 mana, 6/5, trample haste. And whenever Gitrog Ravenous Ride deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice a creature that's saddled at this turn. If you do, draw X cards and then put up to X land cards from your hand into the battlefield tapped, where X is the sacrifice creature's power, saddle for 1, which is actually pretty good. That it's it's nice that it's so low. That's phenomenal. That is really nice. And then you could trigger it with it's a little expensive for 5 mana. That's the downside here, just like the Rakdos one. Any flash is 6, but I think more justifiable than Gitrog. It has haste, which is redeemable. That's the most redeemable thing is that this can actually trigger the turn it enters. Unlike, well, I know it can too, but what do you'll have no mana at this point. We've kind of discussed that, right? So, I mean, I feel like it's a little bit better than the Rakdos, but less than. Again, we're going to see. All of these will need to be experimented with and theory craft and thought about a little bit harder. Currently just in the discovery phase, what is interesting to us and, kind of just cataloging it, right? Because it's going to be a while until we can button down some deck lists, as we don't have all of the cards spoiled yet, right? We're still very much working on that. The Great Train Heist for 1, instant speed with Spree, +3. Untap all creatures you control. If it's your combat phase, there is an additional combat phase after this phase. That's really good. 4 mana, pretty excessive. You can take a Gambit for 3 and have a whole nother turn. Never mind, just a combat. Anyway, there's additional value here, though, HGG. For +2, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain first strike until the end of turn. That's actually really good. That first strike is nice. And, of course, for just 1, choose target opponent, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to that player, create a tapped treasure token, which is not terrible either. I mean, it's not great. Tiny Bones joins up for 1 mana, a legendary enchantment. When Tiny Bones enters the battlefield, any number of target players each discard a card. And whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, any number of target players each mill a card and lose 1 life. I mean, it's 1 mana, I guess. Just sneak it into play. Not terrible. Very good value for 1 mana in a commander game, I guess. One of the best cards I've seen so far, the Slick Shot Show Off for 2 mana. A 1/2 with flying and haste. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +2/+0 until the end of turn. Plot for 2. This is wild. This is absolutely ridiculous. Very, very powerful card. basically double prowess at a certain point since it has flying, right? The haste is phenomenal as well, so we like it. Magda, the Horde Master for 2, a legendary dwarf berserker, 2/2. And whenever you commit a crime, create a tapped treasure once each turn. Sacrifice 3 treasures to create a 4/4 Scorpion Dragon with flying at sorcery. So that's quite nice as well. I mean, it's not great, but it's pretty cool. Moving on, Galissa, the Hellraiser. This is a 5 mana 4/4 legendary human warlock ward 2 as well as pay 2 life. That's hefty. Skeletons and zombies you control get +1/+1 and have menace. I love to see a little lordsmanship here. And whenever you commit a crime, create 2 tapped 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature tokens. This ability triggers only once each turn. Can be your turn as well as your opponent's turn. In Commander, it can be on everyone's turn. Oh my god, that's a lot of zombies, dude. Oh my gosh. And of course, they're going to be 3/3s because of the ability, right? They come out as 2/2s and immediately go to 3/3. Huh. A little expensive, 5 mana. But again, I feel like a lot of these are kind of commander-based. And now, speaking of commander, these are the commanders of the set. If you're interested in these, you can check them out. We're going to skip through them here today. We've got so many cards to cover. If you're interested in commander content, let me know in the comments below. Maybe there's a comment with like 100 thumbs up on it. And they're like, hey, Shichi, more commander content. And then we can like maybe break down these decks, do deck reviews. Let me know, Duggies. But for now, I'm going to assume that no one cares. Move and take note of the commander symbol, right? As well. Moving on. Final Showdown for 1 mana instant speed with Spree +1. All creatures lose all abilities until the end of turn. Interesting. +1. Choose a creature you control. It gains indestructible until the end of turn. All right. And so you're like basically removing their indestructible, grabbing indestructible for yourself. Very versatile, very versatile. And you can destroy all creatures. So you could kind of combo this together, give your creatures indestructible, wipe the field, maybe simultaneously have their creatures lose it. Do these all trigger together or do they stack separately? That's going to be I think they trigger together. If they would stack separately and you could first have all creatures remove all abilities and then give your creatures indestructible and then wipe the field, that would be fantastic. Yeah, it's the final showdown. It's pretty cool, though. I'm pretty sure, and someone can correct me on this if I'm wrong, they're going to trigger all together, though, if you do pay for multiple. Unfortunate accident for 1 with Spree. Instant speed. Choose 1 or more. Additional costs. Destroy target creature for 3. For 1, create a 1/1 mercenary token. It can tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until the end of turn at sorcery. What a letdown. I'm going to try to play more limited this set as well. Let's get a limited comment with some thumbs up on it in chat. Trying not to maybe spend as much on Arena as I used to. Go to a total free-to-play account. Ooh. Plan the Heist for 4 mana. Sorcery Speed Surveil 3. If you have no cards in hand, then draw 3 cards. Plot for 4. So this would work good in a plot-centric deck where you're always exiling your hand into, the plot mechanic, even with Foretell and Suspend or whatever. Pretty cool. But again, I mean, it's not bad. You do often empty your hand. It's not bad. There's a lot of mana, though. Slick Shot Lock Picker. 3 mana. 1, 2, 3. And when it enters the battlefield, target instant or sorcery card in your graveyard gains flashback until the end of turn. That kind of sucks because this is 3 mana. And its flashback will be equal to its original mana cost. So that's fine. The fact that it has plot makes it a lot better. It's going to open up that mana to cast that flashback card, right? So that is actually a well-designed card. I like it. The Violent Cacophony for 4 big ones. Crom is a 2/3 legendary creature, zombie horror with flying, and whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Crom, and also draw a card. Ooh. I mean, free to play cards, am I right? Like, no, it's good. It's got flying and it's a draw engine, dude. That's as good as it gets. Make your own luck for 5. Sorcery speed. Looking at the top 3 cards of your library, you may exile a non-land card from among them. If you do, it becomes plotted. Put the rest into your hand. Ooh. That's actually not that bad, specifically if you're plotting a non-land with mana value 3 or, with mana value higher than 5. And then you're like, so you're drawing 2 cards and plotting 1. Dude, that's not bad. That's a good card. A little expensive, I get it, but plot and Atraxa, bro. Duh. Colossal Rattleworm. 4 mana, 6/5. Has flash as long as you control a desert, which we'd seen at the start of this video. All those new lands were deserts. The damage-based ones. This will, of course, have an ability on it as well, allowing you to exile it from your graveyard, searching your library for a desert card, putting it into the battlefield tapped and shuffling. I mean, it's a 6/5 with trample for 4 that could potentially have flash. What a block. You know, then it comes down and it beats you silly for 6. And then what do they do deal with it? Then, oh yeah, still got good value. Deal another damage with my desert land. So you're dealing desert land damage to have it in with flash. It itself is going to do an amazing job at flash blocking. And then the trample's running through their health points or a planeswalker if they have one. And then if they do deal with it, then you're bringing back another desert for more damage. And it's a non-legendary, so you're playing multiples. Huh. Cacta Ranula for 6 mana as a 6/5. It's a plant spider, and this spell will cost 1 less to cast if you control a desert. It has reach, and whenever it becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So expensive. A 6/5 with reach is very good in limited, though. Big booty. And the fact that it can draw cards is very good as well, replacing itself when they remove it. The Vile Smasher, Gleeful Grenadier. 2 mana, 3/2. Legendary Goblin Mercenary, and whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, the Smasher is going to deal 1 damage to target opponent. And of course, that will be assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks, counting as our outlaw creatures. The Quill Charger for 4 mana will be a 4/3. It's a porcupine mount, if you're curious. And whenever the Quill Charger attacks while saddled, it gets a +1/+2 in menace until the end of turn. Saddle for 2. Classic limited card, you know. Rattleback Apothecary. 3 mana, 3/2 with Death Touch, and whenever you commit a crime, target creature you control gains your choice of menace or lifelink until the end of turn. Interesting. Not terrible, but you know, at least it's something, Mac. The Armored Armadillo for 1, a 0/4 with Ward 1. Interesting. Pay 4. It gets +X/+0 until the end of a turn, where X is its toughness. I mean, that's honestly not terrible. It's a 4/4 for 4, I guess. Holy cow! For 3 mana. I'm going to play this card just to say this. 2/2 with flash and flying. Holy cow enters the battlefield. You're going to gain 2 life and scry 1. That's not bad. The Scorching Shot for 2R. Dealing 5 damage to target creature. Better than Witch Stalker Frenzy, question mark? It can be, but it could also cost you 1 extra, and it's not at instant speed. The instant speed is nice because then they kind of mess up on their blockers, but it's not bad. I mean, it's not bad. Sorcery, you just Remove it pre-combat anyways. Who cares? A little loss in value there, but 5 damage to creature at 2. That's pretty good. It's definitely not bad. Honest Rutstein for 3. This is, oh man. This is a 3/2. You're losing it, HGG. When it enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. That's actually not terrible. An ETB and then the creature cost reduction. Decent. That's pretty good. The Frontier Seeker, 2 mana, 2/1. Is this a Chocobo? Interesting. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. Reveal a mount creature. It is a Chocobo. Or a Plains card from among them. Put it into your hand. The rest in the bottom of your library in random order. Ride that bird, dude. Ruthless Lawbringer for 3 is a 3/2 Vampire Assassin. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target non-land permanent. Ooh, woo. That's a good one. Dang. Very nice. Destroy target non-land permanent? Don't mind if I do, Hugh. Of course, as an uncommon card, that's as good as it gets. The Key to the Vault. 2 mana, legendary artifact equipment. And whenever an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards off the top of your library. And you may exile a non-land card from among them. Put the rest in the bottom in random order. And you may cast that exiled card without paying its mana cost. Of course, it will be equipped for 3. Why don't they just say you plot the card? Oh, because this is better than plot. Because there's no open information. That information remains hidden to you. And you are not allowed, well, the information being unhidden is irrelevant because you have to cast it right now, right? That it's going into exile, and then here's your choice to cast it. You can't just leave it there for a bit. I believe, right? Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, look at that many cards off the top of your library. You may exile a non-land card from among them. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in random order, and you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. No, I actually think maybe you can cast that card whenever. So it does make it strictly better than plot because it's the same, but there's no revealed information, I believe. That's pretty cool if I'm correct on that. Whether or not you're allowed to cast that card later in time or specifically on stack when this triggers. I think you can cast it later, which is cool. So, now we're getting into these alternative print cards. They're going to be legal in formats they're already legal in. We're going to skip through them. They're just reprints. Clear Shot, pretty cool. Mana Drain, Oko Thief of Crowns, nice. Dust Bowl, that's actually good for, Grindstone's not bad either. Path of Exile, that's pretty cool too. And then the, what are these called? The Special Guests. Again, legal in the formats they're already legal in. If you get them in limited, congratulations. The Stoneforge Mystic, Brazen Borrower, Port Razor, the Straight Up Desert, Mystic Snake, Morbid Opportunist, which is been upgraded into Mythic. I always knew you were a good card, Morbid Opportunist. All of my free-to-play decks have this card in it. It's fantastic. Desertion, Notion Thief, Scape Shift, Prismatic Vista, and then we are into the big score cards. Torpor Orb, 2 mana, artifact, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Woo! That's a sideboard card for sure, dude. The Vault-Born Tyrant for 7, pretty expensive. But you, as a 6/6, have trample, and whenever it enters the battlefield, or a creature with power 4 or greater, you're going to gain 3 life and draw a card, which is a big deal. That's definitely not bad. And of course, whenever it dies, if it's not a token, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. Again, very expensive, but this goes great in so many of our Gwenna Eyes of Gaia decks, where we are playing with a build power 5 or greater. This is that, and is now a draw engine as well as a life gain engine for us. It's beautiful. The Old Tech Matter Weaver for 3 is a 2/4 human artificer, and whenever you cast a creature spell, choose one, creating a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token, or creating a token that's a copy of target artifact you control. There is the Thousand Moon Smithy, which I think would be really cool to copy those creatures. They're going to be artifact tokens, and that's phenomenal. Of course, just making artifact gnomes is cool too. This is a nice card, specifically in maybe mono white artifacts deck. Maybe we add a second color to it, but it's nice to see good cards that maybe aren't specifically tailored to the current meta deck, which we see for mono white humans. Yes, this is a human that is very good, but it probably is better elsewhere. Yeah, is it better than an Adeline? Probably not. Well, it is also non-legendary, so you can stack it up. The Transmutation Font for 5 mana is an artifact, and you can tap it to create your choice of blood token, clue token, or food token. Furthermore, we can pay 3 tapping it to sacrifice 3 artifact tokens with different names, food, blood, and clue, searching our library for an artifact card, putting it into the battlefield, then shuffling at sorcery speed. Of course, we could probably preload these tokens as well. A little bit of a weird card, but it'll be useful somewhere, I'm sure. Probably in older formats where you have access to maybe more valuable artifacts. But I think we even still have Portal in standard, which is pretty decent. So the Trained Arnix, 2 mana, 3/1. And whenever it attacks while saddled, it's going to gain first strike until the end of turn. Scry 1, saddle over 2. Cool beans. Rakish Crew for 3 as an enchantment, entering the battlefield, creating a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until the end of turn, activating this at sorcery. And whenever an outlaw you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's interesting. Double down for 4 enchantment. Whenever you cast an outlaw spell, copy that spell. Oh, that's kind of cool. Toru, the Infiltrator for 2 is a 3/2 legendary human ninja rogue with menace, and whenever it and or one or more other non-token creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast them, draw a card. Okay. Interesting. Probably not good, but the ETB is decent. The fact that it's going to draw is nice. And then non-token creatures entering are common as well. Again, we're kind of discussing like that Joda deck. It's a 5-color legendary humans build. And this is going to go in that quite nicely, right? Whenever it or one or more other non-token creatures enter the battlefield under your control, if none of them were cast or no mana was spent to cast the spell, draw a card. The spells with Joda will not have a mana trigger on them. The spells with that other card that we talked about while discussing Joda, the Bance, Kellen the Kid, again, no mana spent when those creatures are entering the battlefield, which is pretty groovy. The resurgence of Joda decks, anyone? The Plundering Pugilist, 3 mana, 4/2, legendary human mercenary, and whenever you attack with creatures, whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures with power 4 or greater, create a treasure token. I'm all over the place here. Pay 2, sacrifice a treasure that it itself can create. It's going to deal 1 damage to any target, which isn't terrible. It's maybe not great, though. Form a pose for 2 mana plus X. Form a posse. LOL. think about it for a second, bro. Create X 1/1 red mercenary creature tokens with tap. Target creature gets +1/+0 until the end of turn as sorcery. Lazav, Familiar Stranger, Strangler. For 3 mana, 1/4. Whenever you commit a crime, put a +1/+1 counter on the Strangler, and then you may exile a card from your graveyard. From your graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, you may have Lazav become a copy of that card until the end of turn. This ability is triggering only once each turn. Again, once on every turn. Cool story, bro. Dies to cut down. It doesn't everything. Nice argument. Bovine Intervention, LOL. 2 mana, instant speed, destroy target artifact or creature. Its controller creates a 2/2. I guess you could destroy your own artifacts or your own creatures that have death or leave the battlefield-based abilities, potentially. Martyring Sphinx. The Sphinxies. The Sphinx. 3/5 with Flying, Vigilance, and Ward 2. Whenever you commit a crime, surveil 2, triggering only once each turn. We will have Urthra Jo, Frontier Mentor, 4 mana. 2/4. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 mercenary. Of course, the mercenaries are always the same here. They're going to tap. Creature we control gets +1/+0 until the end of turn at sorcery. And whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. That's actually a very interesting clause. We don't mind. High Noon. I know, right? 2 mana. Enchantment. Each player can't cast more than one spell each turn. Pay 5, sacrifice it, dealing 5 damage to any target at instant speed. Yeah, this is very, very good. You could lock the game down and then sacrifice this on their end step to unlock your turn. Play a bunch, including another copy of High Noon, in which now once their turn resumes, they're again locked out to one spell. Rinse and repeat. Yes, that's interesting. Moving forward, we have a 2 mana 2/2 with haste, and when it enters the battlefield, creature is going to get +1/+1 until the end of turn. Plot for 2. I think. Yes. It's like I know. I actually don't even know what language this is. I read it earlier. I'm going to be honest. I checked this card out during my day. Moving on. The Intimidation Campaign for 3 is an enchantment. And whenever the Intimidation Campaign enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Plus you draw a card. Whenever you commit a crime, you may return the Intimidation Campaign to its owner's hand. That is so good. So you can replay it over and over and over and over. Specifically as a common card, right? That's phenomenal. Oh my gosh. Oh my absolute gosh. And that brings us to March 26th. Outlaws at Thunder Junction. The first set of spoilers complete, along with the set overview, key dates, as well as new themes and mechanics in the sets, all covered for you here today. So thank you all so much for supporting the channel. I appreciate it. We will have more spoilers coming your way soon in the next video, breaking them up. Otherwise, it's going to be a 10-hour video, of course. A new deck list, of course, on the way as well. Peace out, homies. We'll see you soon in the next.